علمه القلم ألا إن الإنسان ليطغى. Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Recite that your Lord is most generous, who brought by men which he knew not. No, indeed, men transgresses. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.
We can bring your chairs here.
I'd like to request the speaker please come.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa ma arsalnaka illa rahmatan lil alamin. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me clearly? No? Can you understand about it? I think I will leave this, and then I'm pretty sure you'll be able to hear my voice. In my college, people used to call me a loudspeaker. I did a speech once in my college, and they had to turn the systems off because they were fearful about the burst of the speakers or something. So I will inshallah address my topic without this sound system. Brothers and sisters, today I will be talking about youth empowerment. You are the future of your communities specifically, and then in general of your country. As we all know, there are no two opinions about the conditions we are going through in this country at the moment. And the topic of youth empowerment is very timely and important. I was born in Pakistan. Let me introduce myself firstly. My name is Rashid, and I am a researcher as well as a lecturer for the Islamic Education and Research Academy in London. And the head of this organization is Brother Abdul Green, who is a well-known proponent of Islam in the world. And I also had the African Development Department working in Africa on different projects. I was born in Pakistan, in Rawalpindi, grew up in Islamabad. In 1997, I made my way to London for good, to study and to enjoy my life. So, at that time, I had no religion in my life whatsoever. I had no intentions to become a practicing Muslim. I didn't even know why I'm going to London in the first place. However, when I landed in London, my father was absent, and he was the only man I feared in my life. And to this day, he's the only man I feared on the face of this earth, for obvious reasons. Because he's my father. So he was absent in London, in Britain. When I went to Britain, he was absent from my life. So I went crazy. For a few years, I went everywhere and anywhere I could. I knew all the rap artists, not all of them, of course, the top rap artists. I used to hang around with them. I got involved in a number of gangs. Okay, I'll wait for everyone to sit down, inshallah, and then continue. yourselves comfortable, inshallah. Come in, come inside. Okay. So I was telling you about myself, my story, my life story. Before I moved to London, I enjoyed different settings, different environments in Pakistan as well. I lived in a village not far from Ahmedabad. The village was in Haripur. I spent some time with my grandfather. I used to help him. We used to run the farm. Then there were some buffaloes we kept. I even used to take care of those buffaloes. Sometimes we had some horses. I used to ride horses. Then there was a tradition in our village known as Gatka. You know what Gatka is, anyone? Put your hands up. No? Gatka is a primitive form of sword fighting. You use sticks, pretending to use swords, and then you learn how to sword fight. And that was a tradition in my village, so I enjoyed that life as well. Plenty of enjoyment, and there was a river next to my village, and I loved that life. But then I moved to Islamabad, went to colleges. Then one of the colleges I went to was ICNC on National B Road in Islamabad, just close to Janasama Market. And I was one of the naughtiest students in the college. This was the assessment of my principal. When I entered the college, I'm sharing this information with you to get you to realize what I was and what I had become and how I become this. My little life story. So, I was in this college. On the first day of my college, I was the kind of person I had to make myself known. Everywhere I go, people have to know me. I have to do something special, so that they remember me for the rest of the lives. So I was one of those people, very passionate, very self-centric. And I walked into this college and I'm thinking, who to pick fight with? This is the attitude I had. It wasn't a good attitude, of course. I know that now. I walked in and I was looking at people and I asked around, who is the best, who's the top gangster? They said these guys and that guy and this guy. So I said, okay. I deliberately picked a fight. The first year of my college, my father paid 5,000 rupees at that time in 1996 was a good amount. So that was the goals.
So band karna hai, band karna hai.
The sound? So, when I went to the college, I had a fight with this guy, deliberately took the fight, and then I split his head open with a brick, unfortunately. And then I disappeared for 2 weeks. Now everyone is asking, who is this guy who turned up to the college on the first day? He did something like this. So I came back, you know, politics, police got involved, and the elders got involved, and everything. Now I come back and everyone knows my name, but people don't know what I look like. I walk into the college, and then everyone comes and pays respect. This is the dog. Okay. Then the principal, eventually, subsequently, what happens is I stay in the college, I cause many disasters and catastrophes, and I cause trouble in classes and everything. The principal invites me one day, and he goes, here, how much did you pay? I said, 5,000 rupees. He goes, take 10,000 rupees, 5,000 on top, and leave the college, please. I said, no, I love this college. He said, let me leave this college. He said, please take the money and leave the college because you are destroying my college. I said, for that reason, I will now definitely stay in your college. He has confirmed my intentions. So I used to use, you know, those crackers we used to get in Pakistan, the white ones. They are really, really loud. You know what I'm talking about? They're called the Sutri bomb. You know what they look like? They are really, really, really loud and strong. I used to use those. Sometimes what I used to do, I used to just light them and throw them in a class and run away. And everyone knew it was me. Everyone knew it was me. But they just couldn't catch me because they didn't have any evidence. They couldn't get my fingerprints, of course. It would go off. So So the principal invited me one day. I was accused of doing all these things. He invited me in the office to simply, literally beg me, please, what do you want? What do you want? Why did you come to this college? Who sent you? I don't have any enemies. Who sent you? So I said, I just love to do this thing. So he said, okay, you are responsible for all these little bombs going off in the college, so you have to stop this. He said, me? Never. I'm not that type of person. So before I went into the office, I told my friends, when I am in the office, do it. So the principal had an office, and there was like a balcony just behind his office, and I think he went off in the balcony. Boom! And the principal shook, and I was right in front of him. I said, that wasn't me. I said, please, leave my college. So this is the kind of life I lived in Islamabad, and I was like, always, being naughty. Then I moved to London, same thing, same attitude. I have to do something special. I have to be known. There was this very stupid, immature attitude I had at the time. I was only 19 years old. So I moved there, and then I went crazy for 2 years. Within 2 years, believe you me or not, all the gangs in East London and South London and West London and all the other parts of London, they knew my name. And there was a time in London when I was looking to buy an Uzi. You know what an Uzi is? You know? You live in Karachi, you don't know what Uzi is? Am I in the right place? You don't know what an Uzi is? Uzi is a gun made in Israel, and it's known for its excellence. Very smooth when it fires bullets. So I was almost I was about to buy. And I used to drive around in Ferraris and M3s, and all my friends, they used to hang around on top of the range, elite class trucks. And that's the kind of environment I was hanging around in. I was kind of lucky in the sense that I managed to connect with those people. So there was a time in my life when I was seeked by many people. People were looking to kill me because, we have a perception about London that London is a beautiful place, it's like Jannah, it's like paradise. Okay? And everyone lives a very happy-go-lucky life. That's not the case. There are parts of London you simply wouldn't like to walk the streets at night. You wouldn't know what would happen. Right? Ironically, Jackie Smith, the foreign secretary, I think she was the foreign secretary, or home secretary. She was the home secretary of Britain not very long ago when the Labour government was in power. She mentioned Kensington. You know where Kensington is? It's one of the posh areas in London, one of the best areas in London, where Princess Diana used to live, and she had a palace there, Kensington Palace. When she divorced with Prince Charles, the Queen gave her this palace as a present, as a gift to keep it. No problem. This was one of the posh areas in Kensington. And she said, this is the Home Secretary speaking, even some of the well-to-do areas, one cannot walk the streets of London at night. And when she made this statement, there is a Diana memorial to commemorate Diana's memory of her life and her deeds. There is a memorial right next to the palace. That's where a 16-year-old girl was raped. When she talked about this well-to-do area, that people can't even walk in the streets of London, even in well-to-do areas like Kensington, the next day, strangely, amazingly, this happened. So the point is that there are places in London you simply wouldn't like to walk the street at night or even in the day. You don't know what will happen. So this drug business and all of that, it was quite rife. People would go after each other and shoot each other and kill each other and things like this. So that's the kind of background I was involved in. And then I had enough of my life. I thought, this is it, man. This is not life. I was very close to committing suicide. I was thinking life is not all about this, going out and driving a flash car and knowing all these rap artists and MCs and things like this. So that's it. I was looking for something different. Then, by the grace of Allah, an opportunity arose for me to come to Pakistan, back to Pakistan. And 3 days before I landed in Pakistan, there was a big fight in a club. Someone challenged our group. Okay guys, you think you're tough? Come and see us here. And my friends, they said, okay, we have a reputation to defend. Have you seen these American gang movies? Some of them? This is exactly how the life was in London for me. Okay? So they said, come to this place and we would talk. And we used to have swords and machetes and all these things, and some people used to carry guns around. And London, guns are very rare in London at that time. Alhamdulillah, I never had one. So I don't have to defend myself when I get back to Britain on Heathrow Airport. If this video gets out and they watch it, they say, where are those guns now? You know? So I don't want to go too much into it. The point is, the life at the time in London for me was very difficult. And then I was woken up, I was shaken about the reality of life and the purpose of my life and what I can do with my potential, the good qualities I had if I had any. So I came back to Pakistan. I was told my grandfather is dying, he's on his deathbed. He was a farmer, I used to help him farming. I was very close to him. And then I came and I saw him dead. And my father then told me that even if we feed him gold now, even if we feed him gold, he is not going to survive. He's going to die. That was a very painful experience for me. I was very close to him, and then I thought about my life and his reality, and I knew what I was doing was wrong. So I was looking for a purpose. Then someone came from our village and gave me a book to read. He said, you guys think you're tough, you guys think you're doing this and you're doing that, and you're making money, and you all have all these things in your life. But look at your ancestors. Look at the history you have. So I studied this book, and this book mentioned my ancestors. Some of the history, they were actively involved in the independence movement, the 19th century. You know, the mutiny, Indian Mutiny, 1857, you know about it? When the Indians collectively, the Muslims and the Sikhs and the Hindus, not the Sikhs so much, but the Muslims and the Hindus, they fought against the British Raj. And they tried to diminish this oppressive regime. So my ancestor, my great-grandfather's grandfather was actively involved, and he was captured, he was put on trial, and almost hanged. But he survived. Some people got involved, and we have a large following in the Akhabad area. There were a few tribes who supported him, and then he survived. And hence, I am here today in front of you. So that history inspired me very much. So when I went back to London, I couldn't go back to that life. Simply, I just withdrew. And then I used to listen to, these gangster raps, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., Busta Rhymes and all these things, crazy stuff, So I used to listen to these raps sometimes, and then I used to get bored. And then I went to my sister's house one day, and she used to listen to some Islamic lectures. Said, give me something different, I'm just sick of this life. So she gave me these lectures. So I used to listen to this lecture, half an hour listening to the Shaykh, and half an hour when I used to get bored with the Shaykh, I used to put Tupac on. All eyes on me and all that, California love, all those things. So I used to listen to all these things. Then slowly, raps faded away, and the truth took its toll. And I was inspired by what the Shaykh was saying. My life changed. I saw a purpose. I thought that I could do something with my life. And then, cut the long story short, between me and Allah there was a chip, a phone chip. You know, the chip you put in your phone, all my contacts, all my friends, those who used to call me, come here, come there, we have this, we have that. All the temptations were in that chip. So I was sitting one day alone and thinking, what the heck? This is the chip between me and Allah. So that was the most difficult decision I've made in my life, and I snapped the chip, and that was it. That's it. My friends, they were lost. I lost the contact details, they lost my details, and I could simply concentrate on my study for a while. And then I started practicing, alhamdulillah. I attended some lectures, and I became very active in Islamic activities. And in those days, 6 months later, September the 11th, the catastrophe, the disaster happened. And then the Muslims were facing a lot of pressure in Britain. And some of my sheikhs, they were put on trial. Deliberately, for whatever reason, they were put on trial, and some of them were in prison. Because they did some lectures in the past, and they talked about Islam and significance and the contemporary age. And then that really shook me as well. That was a very strange experience for me. So I landed from one war zone to another war zone. You see, I faced a different situation altogether in deen, in religion. Then I thought I want to do something. My teachers, they've taught me well, I have to go out and do something. And then I got involved in some humanitarian aid activities, such as Palestine issue. Then, cut the long story short again, I got involved in some debating some atheists and some secularists in Britain and some other theologians from the Christian side. We had dialogues, debates, all kind of thing. Then I got involved in some humanitarian activities. Palestine was bombed in 2008 by the Israelis. Gaza was bombed and 1,500 people died, most of them were children. That was another wake-up call for me. So we rose in London and we thought we should do something in our capacity. Allah has given us strength, we have this strength, this youth, we should do something. We picked up a lot of aid and we drove straight to Gaza. From London to Gaza, driving by road. Okay? So we got to Gaza, we got attacked by the Egyptians. Then we went back again, another time. This time we went from London to France, Luxembourg, Germany, Austria, Italy, and we covered. We crossed all of Greece, then into Turkey, and then Turks are amazing people. They received us warmly. Then we went into Syria, from Syria to Jordan. In Jordan we stayed for a while, came back to Syria again and took a ship across the channel to Egypt, to a place called Al-Arish, and then we were attacked again by the Egyptian army. The Egyptian army gassed us and they attacked us and 50 people were injured. So then we eventually, alhamdulillah, made our way to Gaza, and then people in Gaza, they were over the moon. They were strange experiences I had. On the way to Gaza in Syria, we were in a restaurant having food. A guy came outside and he was a very poor guy. I could tell the guy is very poor, very humble. You know, I could see his slippers. I could tell that this guy doesn't have much money in his pocket. But when we came out, having had our food, he put his hand in his pocket, took out some jewelry. He said, "This jewelry belongs to my wife. This is for the children of Gaza. Take it." And there was his daughter with him. She had earrings and he took the earrings off. Very poor guy. He said, "Take these earrings," and everyone started to cry. It was a very strange experience. Again, everyone just, you know, fell apart. So, again, another experience we had on the way to Gaza, when many people would come and they would just hug us and start crying. In Jordan, we were walking the streets in a place called Aqaba. Aqaba is the southernmost part of Jordan, and it's very close to Israel. You can simply stand here and see Palestine. I don't like to call that land Israel. It's like that building over there. You can see the land. So we were in that place. People would come and they would just hug us and start crying. So you guys are great. You're doing this, you're doing that. No one in the world can do this what you've done. And a lot of these experiences. Then, alhamdulillah, we made it into Gaza, we delivered the aid, we met some amazing people, a lot of crying, a lot of hugging, a lot of sentiments. Came back to London. Then again we went back, this time to North Africa. This time, just before the Arab Spring, you know, all the eruptions which happened in Tunisia, all started in Tunisia and then subsequently spread in the whole of the Middle East. This time we went from London to France, to Spain, to Morocco, Algeria, and then into Tunisia, and then Libya. And then we were stopped at the Egyptian border. And then some of the people in the convoy, they spent more than a month in Libya, and then they were able to make their way to Gaza. And I had to return from Libya. I was leading that particular convoy as the leader, as the Amir of the convoy. I had to return because I had my university to attend. So these are some of the things I did in my life, and the only reason I did this was because I always had a zeal, I always had enthusiasm to do something in my life. I had a desire to die with some kind of history. In the past, however, my intentions were not correct because I always, seek glory, put it sincerely. Always wanted to be known. I have done this, I've done that, this is a plan, But when I came to Deen, I thought to myself, if I was so strong for my own ego, for my own self, when someone used to swear at me in the past, can I have some water? For my ego, I would kill in the past. If someone said to me something stupid in front of me, or someone looked at me in a bad way, I would do anything for myself, to defend myself, to defend my ego. I would do anything. But when it came to defending the poor, the oppressed, those who really need to be defended, I'm not doing anything. This is the idea I had in my mind. You see, there was a verse which I loved in my old days. And I used to watch a lot of Indian films. Not surprisingly. Okay, one of them was Kalia. Have you seen it? Yeah. Kalia. Yeah. Amitabh Bachchan. I'm sure you've seen it, don't be shy. Put your hands up. See? In that film, when he's being pursued, tested by the police, and he's a gangster, he deals in drugs and he does all those wrong things, and then the policeman, he tells him that your time will come soon, you will die, you will collapse. Because the kind of life you're living, you will eventually face your death and your decline. And then he recites a verse, and that was the motto I was following in my life in the past. क्या नज़ा की तकलीफों में मज़ा जब मौत ना आए जवानी में क्या लुत्फ जनाजा उठने का अगाम पे जब मातम ना हो. So this is the principle I had in my mind. I have to do something. If I live like a lion. If I die like a lion. But when I came to Deen, I wanted to do something special for Allah, His Messenger, and for the people in this world, regardless of color, creed, or race. I wanted to do something for mankind. Whether they were Christians, Jews, or Buddhists, or whatever they may be, I wanted to do something special for mankind in my own way. And I didn't really care what the government thinks about me, what the people in Britain, or what the Americans, or what MI5, or FBI think of me. Because I knew I didn't really care in my past. When I went somewhere, when I did something, I did with my heart, with passion, to defend my ego. But this was the time to defend Allah and the principles of Islam. So I stood up, and then I went to Palestine, I did all those things, and I got involved in some other things. And alhamdulillah, for that reason, Allah blessed me with a lot of peace, a lot of satisfaction in my life, and I'm very happy now. In the past I wasn't happy. In the past I have no peace in my life. Now, if I die in one of these causes, in Africa somewhere, delivering aid, or in Palestine, or wherever, I will die peacefully. I have satisfaction. I've done what I have to do in my life, and I want to do more. The point is that all of us collectively, as you see, we will defend our ego at any cost. If I was to swear at your mothers today, you will rise, you will do something, right? You'll say, oh, shut up, man. What are you talking about? Right? But there are people around us dying of hunger, starvation, ignorance, jahiliyyah, all kinds of diseases. Okay? And we are so strong and powerful as youth in Pakistan. Most of you, you come from the elite class, the prosperous class in Pakistan. Most of you, I'm not saying all of you, most of you. Okay? And you can do a lot. Around the corner in Sindh, in Karachi, there are villages people die of hunger. People in these villages, they don't have medical facilities. People in these villages have disasters like Karokari. You know what Karokari is? Yes. You all know about it. Who is going to do something about it? That's the point. And when I came to Islam, I looked at the Prophet ﷺ. A man is in his 40s. Right? This is the time you want to sit down and relax and spend time with your family, especially when you have a family, when you have children, when you have a wife, and Allah puts a burden upon his shoulders. He's in the cave. The verse is recited by the brother in the beginning of this presentation. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. So now these verses were given to him in the cave, and he's shocked. He's in a state of shock. He doesn't understand what this experience means. He runs to his wife, tells her, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me, laqad khashitu ala nafsi. I fear for my life. I don't know what happened to me today. He doesn't know that he's going to be the messenger of God. He doesn't know that he's going to be carrying the heaviest burden put upon anyone's shoulders in the history of mankind. And this is not a young man. This is a man in his middle age. He's 40 years old. At this time he wants to sit down and spend time with his family, relax, chill. Right? But that's not the option for him. For him, Allah again sends another revelation to him. Ya ayyuhal mudaththir, fa'andir wa rabbaka fakabbir, wa thiyabaka fatahir, wa rujza fahjur, wa la tastakthir, wa li rabbika fasbir. Oh, the one who covers himself, rise now, rise. Rise and warn people about the greatness of the Lord. And now be subsequently be patient. Because when you will warn people about goodness, when you will tell them to be good, not kill your daughters, not steal, do not commit adultery, don't do these things, they will strike you. They will come after you. They will pursue you. And they will persecute you. So what was the teaching of Islam? What was the Prophet ﷺ calling towards? That's the question, right? He was calling to us fair things. Ubadah bin Samit, one of his companions, he narrates from the Prophet ﷺ that the Prophet, when he took the pledge from us, the pledge of allegiance, what did he invite to? Bay'uni, pledge with me, an la tushriku billahi shay'an, that you will not ascribe partners with Allah in any shape or form. You will not ascribe partners with Allah. You will worship Allah and Allah alone. Period. Next point. Wala tasriku. You will not steal. Wala taznu. You will not commit adultery. Wala taqtulu awladakum. You will not kill your children. Wala ta'tu bi buhtanin taftaruna bayna aydikum wa arjulikum. You will not accuse, chase people of unchastity. Slander. You will not slander people. Wala ta'tu bi ma'rufin. You will not disobey me good. Are these fair things? Are these fair requirements? Was he calling towards fair things, good things? These are good things, right? Worship Allah, do not steal, do not commit adultery, do not kill your children, because they used to kill their children. They used to kill their daughters. Every time a daughter was born, they would go and bury the girl in the desert. And the kind of people he was sent to, you have to understand the kind of people he was sent to. These were the most barbaric, uncivilized people, arguably on the face of the earth. They had the poetry, of course. They were good at poetry in the linguistic expressions and memorizing the genealogy. They even memorized the genealogy of their horses. You know, if there was a horse kept by an Arab family, they would ask, where did the horse come from? And they would tell you, this horse mated with so-and-so, this goes back a few generations. So they used to memorize the genealogies and the poetry, and they used to take pride in tribal traditions. And at the same time, they used to bury the daughters alive. They had no principles whatsoever when it came to defending the poor. They had no regulations in economic issues. They used to have their own laws, own regulations, and the laws were made by the rich, the powerful. And the poor, the lower class were oppressed. Now a man comes to them and tells them to change the order. The kind of people he was sent to. A companion of the Prophet ﷺ. He used to cry a lot. A lot. And the Messenger of Allah asked him, why do you cry so much? What have you done? He said, oh Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, I've done something really, really bad in my past. And I simply cannot get over it. I cannot get over it. Even though I'm in Islam now, I know my sins will be forgiven, but I just cannot get over this. And the Prophet said, tell me about it. So he said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, I was away for a while from my home and I returned and I saw a little girl running around in my house. I asked my wife who the girl is, and she said, this is a girl we adopted, and she just didn't tell me that actually she was my daughter. And she grew up and she became very close to me. So my wife thought that now I won't kill her, because he was so close to the girl. But then she told him one day that this is your daughter. When you were away, I was pregnant and I gave birth to your daughter, and she's your daughter. The reason why I didn't tell you was to protect her. And this man at that time was so cruel. He took her by the hand, walked through the desert, and the girl is saying innocent things to her father. And then he starts digging. He starts digging, and the girl is brushing off dust from his beard and saying beautiful, nice, innocent things to him, and he's not listening to her, not paying attention to her. And then he puts her in the ditch and he buries her alive until she lets go of his finger. And when he tells this story to the Prophet ﷺ, we looked at the Prophet ﷺ, his beard was full of tears. His beard was full of tears, he was crying. So these are the kind of people the Prophet ﷺ was sent to. How many people do you think would bury their own daughters alive in the world? These people, they were arguably the most uncivilized people on the face of the earth. But then, suddenly, instantaneously, their situation changed. This book came to them and gave them a drive, a passion, enthusiasm to change the situation in the world. So Allah made a promise. This is the empowerment we need to understand. You see, this is how empowerment works. This book, it came and it changed them altogether. The most uncivilized people on the face of the earth became the torchbearers of civilization. They took to the Europeans and the North Africans and to the Spanish and the Chinese what they had in the Middle Ages, the golden age of the House of Islam, which I will talk about in due course, inshallah, very quickly, because I want to take some questions as well. How long do I have? 2. Half an hour. Okay. So these are the people. This was the book which empowered them. You see, changed the world altogether. These people were the most uncivilized people on the face of the earth. The book comes down, suddenly something happens. Within 20 years, the situation of these people changed. Their worldview changes. Their ambitions, their aspirations change. They want to do things now, big things. You know, they're no longer satisfied with their homes and their desert belongings and their little, you know, palm gardens. They're no longer satisfied with that. They want to go out and do something for mankind. So, the Quran tells them, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you were sent as a mercy for the world. Empowerment. Now the Quran is telling these Muslims who have embraced Islam that you are not just following Islam in vain. There is a purpose for you. You are to manifest this mercy which Allah sent down in the Quran. You can't just sit passively and say, La ilaha illallah, I believe in the Shahada and I'm not going to do nothing. That's it. I will enter Jannah. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-Jannah. The Prophet said, whoever says la ilaha illallah, he will enter paradise. Of course you will enter paradise. The point is, how will you enter paradise? Without actions? Without doing anything? If that was the case, why were these people coming out and they ended up in thousands of miles away from their homes? You know, some of the companions of the Prophet, they died in Torkom in Afghanistan. Others ended up in North Africa. So the Quran, at the same time, simultaneously tells them, وَعْدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. It is a promise of Allah to those who believe among you and do righteous deeds. What are the righteous deeds? Do righteous deeds. What are they? Do not ascribe partners with Allah. Do not steal. Do not commit adultery. Do not kill your children. And do not disobey Allah and His Messenger in good. In good. These are the righteous deeds they were asked to do. Right? When they did these righteous deeds, where did they end up? The Prophet ﷺ, and amazingly, it was a promise made in the Quran in the year 632 CE. Or before that, the Prophet ﷺ passed away in the year 632 CE, 11 Hijri. And Allah told them in the Quran that you will overpower this world. You guys, you the Bedouin, you the semi-barbarized or semi-civilized people, you will take this earth as long as you believe and do righteous deeds. And some of them laughed. Some of them were thinking, wow, how is this going to happen? And amazingly, when the Prophet ﷺ was besieged in the village of Medina, not the city. Medina was a village. Okay, effectively Medina was a village. And when he was besieged, thank you. When he was besieged in this village, an army of 10,000 men was besieging him. I'm going to come up with some very interesting facts, by the way. Pay attention. You'll be shocked to learn what I have to share with you. When this army besieged the village of Medina, and with the Prophet there are only 300 people, and they don't even know if they're going to be alive the next morning. They don't know what's going to happen. At that time, the Prophet ﷺ, while digging the ditch, tells them that you will defeat the Arabs, you will defeat the Byzantines, the Romans, and you will also defeat the Persians simultaneously. Some of them laughed. It's like me coming today and telling you there's a village. Do you know any village here? There's no village in Karachi, of course, I know. A little village in Sindh somewhere, a primitive village, where people hardly have anything, any capacity when it comes to material strength. If I was to tell those villages that you, this village, listen to me carefully, effectively, this is what the Prophet was telling his people. You, this village, will defeat the Chinese and the Americans and the Russians simultaneously. What do you think the people of this village would do to me? Sorry? Laugh at me or give me some herbal medicine, right? To wake me up. Because they don't have the medicine we have in the cities. So they will obviously find a bush or some bung or something. Keep me asleep and say, calm down, man, you're going too far. Okay? This is exactly what the Prophet was telling his people. You know, the Persians, they had a standing army of 150,000 men. The Byzantines, the Romans, had a standing army of 200,000 men. The Chinese at the time, the dynasty in China, was one of the most powerful dynasties in the world. Then in North Africa, in Spain, in France. So amazingly, the Prophet told them this. And they, the believers, believed it. They said, yes, we believe it. The Prophet said it has to be done. Done. What happens? 632 CE, the Prophet ﷺ dies. Passed. He's passed away. Okay? What happens exactly a century later? 732 CE. Exactly a century later, what happens? Where are the Muslims? Do you know? Anyone? Just guess.
In Spain.
Sorry?
In Spain. Spain.
Spain, and okay, on the other side?
North Africa. Persia. China.
They have to go through North Africa to get to Spain. So, Spain, and on the other side? Okay. This was the largest empire world had ever known. Bigger than Rome and the Byzantine and the Babylonians and the Egyptians and even the Mongols. Mongols stretched in a square form, and as far as the stretch of land is concerned, Muslims, they took more land than anyone ever took. Even the British Empire wasn't beaten. So it was beaten. Sorry?
Almost half of the earth.
More than that. More than that. Let me give you the geography. They were in northern France. In the year 732 CE, not in Spain, northern France, 300 miles away from Paris, 500 miles away from London, okay? In the year 732 CE. And on the other side, they were in northern China. You know where Xinjiang is today? You know the Uyghur people? There are millions of Muslims today in China, in northern China to this day, okay? They were in northern China on either side. They had taken all of Central Asia and North Africa, Spain, and almost all of France. And then in the south, they were in Sindh, where we sit right now. And Muhammad al-Qasim landed here, and he went as far as Multan. So this was a promise made in the Quran by Allah. Save the questions for Q&A, inshallah. This was a promise made by Allah in the Quran and was fulfilled to the letter. How did this happen? Amazingly, my field is history, by the way. I study history in the University of London, and make dua for me that I finish my PhD within 3 years, inshallah. Inshallah ta'ala. It doesn't appear to be very likely, but inshallah. Historians such as Carol Hillenbrand and Lawrence I. Conrad and Gerald Horting, some of these people are teaching in Harvard, Edinburgh University, and SOAS. You know SOAS? School of Oriental and African Studies in London. Horting is teaching there. These people have said that this was a phenomenon. To this day, we don't have any naturalistic explanation to explain as to what happened in that age, in the 7th century. We don't know. We don't know how these people were able to take so much land in such a short span of time without any material strength. Carol Hillenbrand even goes as far as to say that these Arabs had no special equipment. We don't know. Much ink has been spilled, but no firm conclusions have been formed to this day. We don't know how it happened. It was a phenomenon. But we know how it happened. As Muslims, Allah tells us in the Quran that this will happen. As long as you believe in the righteous deeds, it will happen. So what happened to this youth? The companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happened to them? These people who were villagers, effectively they were villagers. Very primitive in their thinking. But the Quran enlightened them so much, to such a degree, to such an extent, that they were able to face the Byzantines and the Persians and the North Africans and the Spanish and the Chinese and the Indians, Raja Dahir, the ruler of this land, simultaneously, all at one time, and they were able to defeat them. What happened? How did this book, the Quran, empower them so much? How did this happen? How did they have this outward-looking attitude? How did they come out and change the situation of the world? This was that empowerment which we are lacking today. वो मुअज़्ज़ज़ के ज़माने में, can anyone complete this?
मुसलमान होकर
और हम बाहर हैं, who said this? Don't tell us. Who said this? MashaAllah. Because I had an experience yesterday, I recited a verse from Iqbal and I asked the audience to complete it. No one could do it. And I was very disappointed. Pakistan, you don't know Iqbal? So, Iqbal said this, that they were honorable, they were honored and dignified because they were believers. They believed in these values and applied them and implemented them in their lives because these values were good. Not because these values are barbaric or uncivilized or backward. No. Far from it. What I believe in as a Muslim, and I have had debates with some of you, I really strongly recommend, brothers and sisters, you go and watch one of the debates I had. The president of American Atheists, his name is Ed Buckner, and it's on YouTube. And the debate is titled, A Tale of Two Histories. The debate is titled, A Tale of Two Histories. Adnan Rashid, put my name down. It's ID, R-A-S-H-I-D, although it's spelled like Rashid, but it's Rashid, Adnan Rashid, and put the title down, A Tale of Two Histories, on YouTube. And you'll see this debate I had with the president of American Atheists. His name is Ed Buckner, and the debate was about comparison we made in this debate between the Islamic history and the secular history. You see, I'm reading a book right now titled A Century of Genocide, published by Routledge, and it's a very painful book to read. Unfortunately, it's a very painful book. In this book, these people, some academics, have collected articles on different genocides which took place in the 20th century. Okay, beginning with the genocide of the Herero people in Africa, in Southwest Africa, when the Germans were ruling and they wiped out an entire nation because they rebelled against the German rule. Not many people know about this. Okay, everyone knows about the Holocaust, the Jewish Holocaust, and other things. Okay, but in this book, these scholars have documented genocide which took place in the 20th century alone. And they talked about the massacre of Herero people, they talked about the massacre of Rwanda, and the Jewish Holocaust, and Armenian genocide, and all these things. And I argued in this very debate against Ed Buckner that the 20th century was the bloodiest century of the history of mankind. 20th century was the bloodiest century of the history of mankind, and more people died in the 20th century than all of our history put together. More people died in the second 2 world wars. 2 world wars, and they were not fought because of religion, by the way. They were not fought because of religion. This was a century of secularism. This was a century of capitalism, Nazism, communism, socialism, and fascism. And you know what happened? You all know what happened, right? You know the catastrophes? 18 million people in China alone died. You know that? You know what that means? 18 million people? You know what that means? The number. 18 million people are a lot of people. They are a lot of people. In China alone, 6 million people were killed by Stalin. Systematically. Systematically. Starved to death in Ukraine by Stalin. Okay? Millions. Millions were killed in 2 world wars. 60 million. 60 million people were killed in 2 world wars. And what happened in Cambodia, and in Rwanda, and Bosnia, and Chechnya, and the list goes on and on and on. This is not because of Islam. We are the last people to be accused of terrorism. We haven't done nothing. We haven't done nothing. We haven't killed anyone. Okay? And if we have, if you want to argue that way, then do a comparison. I'll give you an example. If there is an ant and there's an elephant, of course, some people would argue the ant is stronger than the elephant. Okay? But I'm talking about the size. Okay? If there's an ant and there's an elephant, and you take a microscope and you go to the ant and say, this ant is the problem. An elephant is causing all the destruction in the world. Elephant is going and destroying the trees and destroying the trees. And the ant, poor ant, is just trying to keep itself to its business and is going on and fetching food. But the elephant is doing all the destruction. So if you were to say that the ant is the problem, not the elephant, would that be fair? No. Would that be just? No. So go and do some statistics research. You will see who is killing and how many people they have killed in the world.